hear me out. What if you could meal prep a Big Mac? Scenario 1, you buy a Big Mac and fries every day this week, and by the end of the week, you've spent $75 and you feel like a Big Mac. Scenario 2, you spend about an hour making these Big Mac meal prep bowls for more food, more protein, oh, and the whole thing costs less than $20. This is pick me energy. It's not even a debate. Starting with our potatoes, because this is a meal prep, we need our potatoes or our French fries, whatever you want to call them, to stay structurally sound throughout the week, which means we need something that's going to hold up, like a Yukon Gold potato. You can use a russet, but chances are by the end of the week, they're just gonna get really, really mushy. And if you use a red potato, then it's just gonna be really firm and not super enjoyable. So we've decided to go with 2.5 pounds of Yukon Golds. After you give them a good wash, we'll go ahead and just peel them. If you wanted to, you could leave the skin on, but then they're not gonna be as crispy and not gonna hold their crisp for nearly as long. So I would recommend peeling for sure. Now, once these are all peeled, you can go ahead and discard the skins in the trash. Don't put them down the the disposal, because it will get clogged and make a huge mess. And now to cut these, we're not gonna go with our traditional fry shape. And that's mainly because of the fact that traditional fry shape is not gonna hold on to tomorrow, let alone the whole week. So we want something that's gonna be a little bit more rigid. And for that, we're just gonna go ahead and give these a nice dice. It doesn't have to be anything too specific. I like nice inch-sized cubes is good. The important thing is that you're gonna be cutting these up roughly the same size, so that way they cook in the same amount of time. If you want to cut them smaller, you totally can. I wouldn't necessarily go any larger than a square inch, but that's more of like a personal preference thing and a textural thing. If you go bigger, you're just gonna have more of like inside mashed potato versus crispy outside potato. So personal preference. Now to cook our potatoes, we're doing a 2-step process, and the first step is boiling. So into some boiling water, we're gonna add about a half teaspoon of baking soda and a few generous pinches of salt. Now you might be wondering why our water is already boiling, when traditionally, if you're boiling potatoes, you wanna put them in cold and then bring the water up with it. That way your potatoes cook evenly and your outside isn't overcooked. But today we kind of want to do that. Both the baking soda and the pre-boiling water are going to help the outside of our potatoes stay nice and fluffy, so that way when we get to step 2, they get extra crispy. But before that, we just need to let these cook till they're fork tender, or about 10 to 12 minutes. And while we wait for these to cook, it's a perfect time to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. All of these things are totally free and they help support the channel tremendously. So if you learned something from these videos or just enjoy watching them, it would mean the world to me if you would just consider subscribing. Pretty please. Well, I'm back and it's been about 7 minutes, so I was totally off on that time and I don't know why. But 7 minutes later, our potatoes are nice and fork tender. So now we can carefully remove these from our boiling water, placing them into a nice clean bowl. And now for step 2 of our potatoes, we've let all that steam evaporate, all the excess water has come off of these potatoes, and we can start by just giving these a nice toss. This will give the, if I can keep them in the bowl, this will give the outside of our potatoes a nice mushy and starchy exterior, like so. And that's from our pre-boiling and our baking soda, and all that's going to do is just help us get a nice crispy exterior when we roast them in the oven. But first, we'll drizzle on 3 tablespoons of beef tallow. This will help to really give us that McDonald's-y taste and flavor, because while they used to fry their French fries with beef tallow, now they use like a beef tallow flavor additive, which still tastes really good, but this is real beef tallow, so it'll be better. A teaspoon of onion powder, a teaspoon of garlic powder, a small pinch of salt, because we did heavily salt our water earlier, and then we'll finish it off with a little black pepper. Now we can again just give these a nice toss to make sure they're nice and evenly coated. You do want to be fairly gentle when you're tossing, because you don't want it to turn into full mush. Then you just have mashed potatoes, and that's not the same. And now we'll come in with a sheet tray. We're also going to brush this with our beef tallow. You certainly don't have to use beef tallow. It just is going to be an extra layer of flavor, but if you don't have it, don't worry about it. You can use bacon fat, you can use neutral oil, you can use whatever you have on hand. Not having beef tallow should not be the thing that stops you from cooking for yourself this week. That would just be ridiculous. Heck, use Pam if you have it. Now we can just go ahead and spread these potatoes out on our cookie sheet, and we'll do our best to make sure they're not touching. If they've got space between them, then that means they'll get extra crispy. If they're touching, they're not gonna get as crispy. And that's the whole point of this. These are really good. And now we can just throw this tray into our oven set to 425 for about 20 to 30 minutes. It's gonna depend on your oven, because everybody's oven's a little bit different and they're not exact, but just watch it. Give it a quick toss here and there if you like. Doesn't hurt, but just 20 to 30 minutes. And while those roast, we're gonna finish literally everything else, starting with our Big Mac sauce. And if you don't know why I have a gallon jug of mayonnaise, then after this, you should probably go watch this video, so that way you can learn to make all these other cool sauces, only if you wanna feel included. Now for our Big Mac sauce, it's going to start with 1 cup of mayonnaise. In our case, we're using heavy duty mayonnaise. Then 1/4 cup of sweet pickle relish, followed by 2 tablespoons of spicy brown mustard. Now this actually shouldn't be spicy brown mustard. What it should be is Doofenshmirtz mustard, or Doofenshmirtz, Dusseldorf mustard. However, none of my stores had Dusseldorf mustard, so spicy brown mustard is as close as I'm gonna get. Then we have a teaspoon of distilled white vinegar, 1 1/4 teaspoon of sweet paprika, a teaspoon of onion powder, a teaspoon of granulated garlic, a 1/4 teaspoon of white pepper, and a 1/2 teaspoon of sugar. The sugar is technically speaking optional, but I found that it helps to get closer to that restaurant taste. Then we can just give this all a nice stir. And another important thing here is that while this doesn't take very long to make, in order for it to taste right, you need to let it sit in the fridge for at least a few hours to let all those spices hydrate. If you don't, it's texturally gonna be a little bit grainy and it's not gonna taste right. So just let it chill in your fridge for a bit, it'll help the taste better. And of course, if you know me, then you know that this sauce or any sauce is going straight into a squeeze bottle. It's not required, but it certainly makes using sauces a lot easier. And now onto all of our toppings. We're gonna start with 1/2 head of iceberg lettuce. You gotta have that shred on there if it's really a Big Mac. Just to make this easier, we're gonna go ahead and give it the quarter treatment. And then from here, I'm gonna take away those outside layers because those probably were fondled by a stranger at the grocery store. And then we can just give this a nice shred. Both sides, of course. And then we'll move all of it into our salad spinner because you have to wash it. Preferably after you cut it because that really helps to open everything up versus like if you just wash it like this, there's all those crevices where water's not gonna get to and stuff can live and be there and you don't want that. So wash your lettuce. How's it going? What's going on with you? What's new this week? Anything to celebrate? Anything troubling you? You know, anything you want to talk about? Anything you want to share? Let me know. I'll go first. My wife and I are currently doing something really exciting, but also super, super terrifying. And it's not the baby. It's in addition to the baby. But it's very exciting, but also very terrifying. So that's what's going on in my life right now. What's going on in yours? Now onto our white onion. We need 1/4 of this. We'll take that over there and this over here. You can by all means use more onion if you like, but just in this case, since it's not a onion forward thing, it's supposed to be like a burger topping, we don't need very much. We'll just go ahead and cut this into nice thin slivers, but not all the way through. And then we'll just give it a very fine dice. My trash can is very full today, so I'm not throwing anything in it, simply just placing things in it. Now next up we have some tomatoes, which technically speaking are not on a Big Mac. However, when I was thinking about this and putting it together and trying things out, it felt like it needed a little extra something as a topping. It just needed something. So tomato is what it is. If this is the thing that makes you go, whoa, 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 this isn't the same, then I apologize. I truly do, but tomato is going in mine. So feel free to add it to yours. Feel free to leave it out. We're just gonna go ahead and give this a nice dice. I need to sharpen my knife. A dull knife is a dangerous one. And now last up for our toppings, we've got pickles, which you can 100% do just like regular sliced pickles, but I figured since it was going into this different form in a bowl situation, I figured it might be a little nicer to do some like chopped up pickles, some nicely diced pickles. You know what I'm saying? That's good stuff. So we'll go ahead and thinly slice these guys long ways and then just give it a nice fine dice similar to our onion. So you can get little bits of pickle in each bite, but not like, oh my God, a whole pickle. You know, it's not overwhelming. And just a couple of these spears will do. Or 3 if you count the one that you snack on. I don't know if you want to snack or not. And now for the final step in our Big Mac bowl, and arguably the most important, our beef. Now we are using 2 pounds of 80/20 ground beef, which simply means that in each one of our bowls, if you compare it to a Big Mac, you will have twice the amount of meat that you would in your Big Mac, which is simply so much better. But now to cook our beef, we've been preheating a stainless steel skillet to medium high. We're gonna add in about a tablespoon of beef tallow, or if you don't have beef tallow, you're more than welcome to just use a neutral oil. This is just gonna help to give us a more beefy flavor. And while this spreads around and coats our pan, I might as well go over how we are seasoning our burger today. Now McDonald's uses a very complicated blend of spices and seasonings to season their beef. They use a very specific mixture of crystalline sodium chloride and piquant black peppercorns, also known as salt and pepper. That's it, salt and pepper, nothing fancy. So we're gonna go in with our beef, making sure we're spread nice and evenly so we can get good searage, good coverage, and then we'll season with some of that crystalline sodium chloride and some hand ground piquant black peppercorns. We're fancy today. And now after a few minutes, we can go ahead and start to flip our beef. We should have a little bit of nice color on that bottom side there. We can start to break it all up. We're not gonna be doing full-on patties in our bowls because that just seems like an inconvenient way to eat it. So we're gonna do little ground chunks. No, got it. Then once you've got all that broken up and spread around, we'll go ahead and let that sit for another couple minutes to get a little bit more color on that bottom side. And then once you can no longer see any of that pink, we're gonna go ahead and remove all of our grease because there is a lot of it and we don't want really any of it. So you'll just very carefully pour it out into a bowl. I know there's a better way to do this, but I'm not doing it. Perfect. Now that we've got all of that taken care of, we can go ahead and add in our cheese. Now, traditionally, a Big Mac has 1 slice of cheese per sandwich. And since we're trying to stay as true to form as we possibly can, we're going to be doing 5 slices of cheese for our 5 servings. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now we're just gonna go ahead and kind of fold all this cheese into our meat mixture here. So that way the meat's kind of incorporated with the cheese. There's not like chunks of it. We're getting that cheesy flavor because we're using American cheese, but it's not like an overwhelming amount. And every single bite has a little bit mixed in. And then now that our cheese is all nicely melted and incorporated, we're ready to put together our bowls. Now, something to keep in mind while you assemble these is how you plan to eat them. In my case, my wife just eats them cold. For some reason, she doesn't like to heat up food, so I just pack it all together. But if you're gonna wanna heat up your meat and potatoes, then I recommend using a thin piece of plastic wrap to separate your produce from your non-produce. That way you can just lift it up, heat up your food, and put the rest back in. Also, don't forget sesame seeds. Sesame seeds are important. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed it. I really hope that you learned something. Here's some videos I think you'll enjoy watching next. Here's a photo my wife took me when I fell asleep in an airport like 4 years ago, and I'll see you next week.